Welcome everyone to Raising Positive Children, a Night of Hope. I am Vice Mayor Siple, and this is the sixth in a series of presentations that I am honored to host with West Campus Charter School Principal Michael Castellano, the Education Roundtable Forum, and the City of Pembroke Pines. Each forum that we have presented to date was created to give families, educators, and our youth an opportunity to learn, become aware of, and find solutions to issues, concerns, and changing situations that today's young people may be facing. And while we certainly miss interacting with you in person as we have done in our past forums, we are very excited to be able to share with you today the insights of our very special guest and provide helpful resources during this very challenging time. The stress, fear, and uncertainty created by the COVID-19 pandemic can wear anyone down, especially our young people, and it impacts all of us in so many different ways. That's why we felt that holding a night of hope now virtually and not waiting for the time when we can all meet in person would be welcomed and needed, and we do hope you agree. None of us knows exactly what lies ahead or what will come our way, but we do know that together we are strong and that we are always here for each other. So please take this moment to relax, watch and listen with open minds, and let us now begin this evening's Raising Positive Children, a Night of Hope. And it truly is a night of hope for all of us.
I'd like to build the world a home and furnish it with love. Grow apple trees and honeybees and snow white turtle doves. I'd like to teach the world to sing in perfect harmony. I'd like to hold it in my arms and keep it company. I'd like to see the world for once all standing hand in hand and hear them echo through the hills, oh peace throughout the land. I'd like to teach the world to sing in perfect harmony. I'd like to teach the world to sing in perfect harmony. La 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 la. Do 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 do. I'd like to build the world a home and furnish it with love. Grow apple trees and honeybees and snow white turtle doves. I'd like to teach the world to sing in perfect harmony. I'd like to hold it in my arms and keep it company. I'd like to see the world for once all standing hand in hand and hear them echo through the hills, oh peace throughout the land. I'd like to teach the world to sing in perfect harmony. I'd like to teach the world to sing in perfect harmony. I'd like to teach the world to sing in perfect harmony.
Thank you and welcome once again to a very special edition of Raising Positive Children, a Night of Hope. My name is Michael Castellano, and I am the proud principal of the City of Pembroke Pines Charter School West Campus. And it is my privilege and honor to introduce to you our special guest speaker, who was scheduled to come back in March, but unfortunately, due to the pandemic, we had to cancel. Nathan Harmon is the founder of Your Life Speaks, and internationally recognized for helping young people navigate through the challenges of life and discover a healthy outlook. He joins us tonight to help navigate these challenges, especially now during this pandemic, and help us cope, build bridges, and connect. As he will explain in more detail, his powerful message resonates with all age groups and comes from a combination of unique life experiences and a desire to help others. In addition to speaking at schools, universities, and conferences, Nathan hosts a weekly podcast called Real Life. While his presentation is appropriate for all ages, you may wish to excuse younger children after the first 15 minutes, as Nathan will introduce topics more suitable for those in grades 5 through 12. Now, without further ado, please welcome our friend, Nathan Harmon.
Hey, what is going on, everybody in the Pembroke Pines community, the surrounding areas, wherever you are right now sitting in and watching this? I just want to say, what's up? Welcome. This is a night of hope. And it's not only a night of hope, but it's also a night of building bridges and that we're better together and that no one's an island, but this is a night for us just to get to live together. And my hope through all of this evening is that this is a night that's kind of like this family night where you can sit with your kiddos and you can sit with your spouses and you can just sit with your family, take a deep breath. I know that this last several months has been full of challenges, adversity. I know for many of you in that community, the last several years has been full of just, man, so many things called life. Challenges that some of us never thought we were going to have to face. Some of the things that we never wanted to face. It's just life, and life is challenging. But tonight, hopefully this is just a night for us to relax and just to spend this evening together, because the truth is this is a night of hope. And every single day moving forward is a night of hope. And every day in our past, hopefully you begin to realize that there is always hope. Because what I always say, no matter how young, no matter how old, no matter who you are, that as long as there's breath in our lungs, there is hope in our heart. And that is every single one of us watching this. You know, what I really want all of you to really grasp, again, young and old, no matter where you are in this journey called life, is just to know this, that every single one of us, every single one of you, we're meant to leave these unique, one-of-a-kind fingerprints on history. You watching this, no matter who you are, even if your parents are next to you or your children are next to you or your spouses or your siblings, but every one of you watching this, you have these unique fingertips. They're one of a kind. And the truth is, every one of you, you were meant to leave these fingertips on history. And so I just hope to get to come and kind of hang out with you guys tonight to help you understand how I've learned to navigate some of my storms and my adversity. Because the truth is, we've all, no matter where we are in our journey, are going to face storms, are going to face adversity. And I don't have to say that more than really right now, that we are all facing some of those things now, that 2020 has been a year of challenging situations, challenging lifestyles, challenging emotions. COVID has really caused many of us to really look at life and try to figure out how we're going to move forward. But what I can promise you is this, that even though we need to be physically distant, we've got to stay socially connected. And even though they've termed it social distancing, I understand the heart behind it and I get it. But I want all of you to know that we can't stay socially distant. We've got to stay socially and emotionally connected. And if you're here watching this right now and you're in my elementary schools or my young middle school or in my high school or a college kid or an adult, no matter where you are, I want you to understand something. Not one of us is meant to be an island. We need each other, and we've never needed to have that deeply embedded in our heart right here, right now. The importance of community. The importance of us living life together. And so we're going to jump into this tonight. I hope that I can just give you some nuggets of ways that I've navigated this. I hope that I can inspire you. I hope more than anything that you just, when this is all over, hold your family a little tighter, take a deep breath, and realize no matter what we are faced against, we as people, we as humanity, we're going to navigate through this. But we shouldn't, and we don't need to, try to do it alone. Because honestly, nobody can see your blind spots. We need each other. And so I feel that getting into this, as we're talking to all of us, because right now I hope that some of my youngsters are right there in front of me, my elementary students, these ones that are the next world changers and game changers and human history and mankind. I want you guys to understand that as you're growing up, your family and your willingness to talk and to open up and to share your emotions, it will be one of the most powerful tools that you have ever learned as a habit. You see, growing up, sometimes we feel the pressure of wanting to fit in with our peers and the pressure of wanting to fit in with everyone around us. We have this pressure of a culture. Maybe it's through social media or what you're watching on YouTube. Listen to me. This is what I want you to understand. It's so important, no matter where we are in life, young or old, to know that our emotions, how we feel, they don't have to control us. We can know we're upset, we can know we're sad, we can know we're happy, but just because we feel a certain type of way, it doesn't mean that I have to act always on the feeling. The feeling is just a way that kind of gives me the thermometer of where I'm at on that day. And what's great about having those feelings is that hopefully that is giving you some signals of maybe needing to talk to your parents, needing to talk to a counselor, needing to talk to somebody. But what I want you to know, no matter where you are in life, is that those feelings, they don't have to control you. Feelings are feelings. We all have them. But how we deal with them, how we process them, how we navigate those feelings is what's important. And what I've learned in my entire journey that I wish I would have gotten a little bit quicker when I was younger, I'm talking in that elementary, that first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth grade, was that to really know that it's okay to not be okay, and it's okay when things aren't going perfect, but it's my job. I need to find the courage to talk about my stuff. I need to find the courage to know that my parents, my friends, my counselors, my teachers, everybody and anyone around me, they have those same feelings too. And just because I feel a certain type of way, it doesn't mean that everything is terrible. It's just my emotions are there right now. And so I believe one of the most important things that I hope to share with you guys tonight, no matter how young or old you are, is just this. Is that when you're feeling a feeling, don't internalize it, but learn to share it. Learn to talk about it. See, the truth is, I for years have talked about taking off my mask. And now in 2020, I've got to clarify that a little bit more specifically. I'm not talking about necessarily the physical masks, the ones that many of us are wearing that's safe health measures as we're navigating this virus. I'm talking about taking off the social and the emotional mask. Hugo, the one that many of us wear. The one we put on the fake face, the fake smile. We act like things are all okay. Everything's picture perfect. But behind the mask, behind those smiles, everything isn't picture perfect. That's the mask that I'm talking about. That's the one that I learned at a young age that I thought I had to keep on, but I realized that mask, it wasn't helping me. See, I thought not letting anybody in below the surface, I thought it was going to protect me. But I learned the hard way that wearing the mask and not letting people in, it was probably the biggest mistake that I had ever made, Because I don't care if we're young or if we're old, that mask, it won't keep us safe. It's only going to continue to create a place where for the hurt and the pains to get stronger, to get deeper, and to continue to consume us. See, truthfully, regardless of how young or how old you are right now, you've probably had to face a little bit of anxiety, maybe even some depression. And what I mean by that is you sometimes may feel like the walls are closing in, or it's hard to stay focused because our mind is racing with what if this and what if that. Because the world right now, there's a lot of uncertainties, and that's okay. But what I've learned, and I'll say it many times tonight, is that the more I talk about my stuff, the easier and the more peace and the more hope that I find. Because when I talk, regardless of how young or old I am, and I begin to share with friends and family, you know what happens, guys? Those friends, those family, those people around me, they also begin to talk and share too. And that creates and builds connection. That creates and that builds community. And that's what we need to ultimately thrive, to be the best us. As we grow up, and even if you're the parent here watching this right now, and you find it really difficult to take off that emotional and that social mask, listen to me. We've got to realize that community, friends, family is everything. And that we need to stay socially connected because we are meant to live this thing called life together. So to all my youngins on here watching this, my amazing world changers, game changers, that next generation, I need you to understand and not make the same mistake that I made. And that was that I didn't talk about my stuff. I was afraid to. And that's fair. Sometimes there can be fear. Sometimes there can be uncertainty. But what I want you to know is you have nothing to be afraid of. That truthfully, fear wants to wrap around us and paralyze us where we don't move and our mind races and it runs. Don't let it. I've learned to speak up and to speak out, and I had to punch that fear in the face. And I'm not talking about physical violence. I'm talking about that social, that mental, that emotional resiliency that when I feel something, I'm going to talk about it. And I can't say it enough. Sometimes you just have to do it afraid. You just got to find the courage, take off that mask, and go for it. And so to all of my younger ones on here, listen, it's going to be okay. You are going to continue to navigate this thing called your life. But I want you to realize that, man, even though it's a little different this year, even though I know that we've had to face more challenges that many of us didn't expect, just keep taking one step and one day at a time. It may sound too simple, but I promise you, it's not. How we treat each other matters. Learning to talk about our stuff matters. And realizing that you are not alone. That matters. Even though you may feel alone sometimes, I want you to know feelings can lie to us. Like I said earlier, our emotions don't have to control us. But us taking a deep breath and breathing. And truthfully, that's how I've navigated my life this last 10 years, and it's changed everything. I realize how I treat people matters. I realize that I didn't have to give into the pressure of everything around me, and that the people around me, man, it's so important. And so for you, my elementary students, listen, it's going to be okay. I'm excited for you. And I just want you to know that no matter what you're up against, trust friends and family around you. Settle in your heart. And tonight, as I'm going to dig in a little bit deeper tonight, and so if you're watching this and you have maybe your elementary student next to you, your son, your daughter, and maybe you don't want them to hear more, because I want to talk a little bit about more intensity when it talks about having healthy mental health with the pressures of this thing called suicide or the self-harming and some of these battles that I've had to face and my substance abuse and just so much of my struggle. Maybe this is a time that you want to take your younger children to another room, but maybe not. Maybe you're like, hey, I want them to face and to hear and to be there, to know that no matter what happens as they grow up, that we're in this together. And so I just wanted to give that to you for this moment, because listen, tonight, guys, there are so many resources that your community has right here on the bottom of the screen. There are all of these resources that each one of you have the ability to use. And I would embolden and I would challenge you. Listen to me. Use the resources that are around you. I know sometimes we're like, Nathan, I know there's resources and I know there's maybe some free counseling and I know there's some people that I can call or I can talk to, but you know what? I feel like that's weird, that's strange, it doesn't really work. Listen to me. Don't turn a blind eye to how valuable these resources are, because that's one way that I began to take a hold of my life. Is I found the courage to use the resources around me. And man, for me personally, me talking to counselors, me journaling, me listening to those amazing professionals that help me navigate my life, it's changed my life. And truthfully, I stopped caring what others thought about me because I was willing to use these resources and these tools that were right in front of me. And so I challenge all of you tonight, today, use these resources, because the community that's bringing this night to you, this night of hope, of building bridges with myself, Nathan Harmon, with myself, my organization, Your Life Speaks, they care about you. They believe in you and they just want to see you thrive. You know, another thing that I want you guys to fully understand is that when this is over tonight, that we have this 6-video series that your community has now, that you can just contact your leadership, you can contact your community, and they will get those for you, your parents, your siblings, your students, your children. And it's a 6-part series that I just continue to break down a little bit what I'm going to talk to you guys about tonight. It's great thought-provoking things. It's 3 hours, 6 videos. It's another resource that I want you guys to have. But I don't know if you've heard or maybe you've got it, but listen to me. Resources work. Use them. If you're struggling, don't sit back. Don't just turn a blind eye. Don't think that you have to do this on your own, because honestly, you're not supposed to. And truthfully, you really can't. I can't. I couldn't. And I would submit and say to you, you can't and you shouldn't either. You'll be able to navigate this thing called life for a season. But truthfully, eventually, when you're alone, man, we begin to have those weak moments. And like I said earlier, you won't see your blind spots. We're not an island. We don't need to be an island. And that's going to lead me into what I want to talk about to you guys really tonight, about building bridges, the fact that there's hope. But truthfully, community to me is everything. You see, every single one of us watching this right now, we were born, and there is a natural, deep, I feel, desire for human connection. And that's why recently it's been challenging for so many of us. I'm not naive to know that some of you watching this right now, man, you have felt the pressure of life. You've battled with thoughts of maybe wanting to give up. You've battled with literally those ideas of suicide. You've saw it on TV. You've heard about it on social media. And maybe you even yourself right now, you've been like, you know what, maybe giving up on life and just ending it, that's my way out. I don't want to deal with this anymore. You see, I've been there. I've navigated those storms. Maybe for some of you, you have those emotions, you have those feelings, you have these things inside that you've wore that social and emotional mask that it hasn't found a healthy way out. And maybe you've turned to self-harming. And maybe that pain has been your new release point because you heard about it or your friends were talking about it. You see, I've battled that too. I've got scars on my hands. Maybe for some of you, it's been the substance abuse. Maybe you've got friends in school or even siblings or people around you, and that, you know what? They offered you a drink or they've offered you this substance and you tried it and you honestly just wanted to feel some kind of release and connection, and you gave into the pressure and it gave you what I call the counterfeit connection. You see, I've been there too. Everything tonight that I want to talk to you about, I'm not here talking at you. I'm here talking with you. Your story, my story, it really is just the story. It's the story of people trying to navigate this thing called life. And life's going to throw us all kinds of storms. There's going to be mountains that we have to climb. But this is what I want you to understand. Storms, even though right now, when maybe it's raining, literally raining where you're at, but the amazing part is the sun's going to come back out. You know, when you're climbing a mountain, and maybe that's the most difficult challenge, that you're trying to climb this mountain and it seems steep and it's rough terrain. But the truth is, if you keep putting one foot in front of the other, you're going to get to the mountaintop, and then you're going to have some release as you walk down. I always say it this way. Storms, they come and they go. Mountains are always going to be there, but that means there's going to be valleys, ups and downs. It's like the waves of the sea out there and the amazing oceans that you guys get to experience when you go to the ocean side, to that beachfront. Waves come in and they come out. See, life is all about these rhythms. And for me, I've navigated all of these. And especially right now, guys, when a lot of times you may feel isolated. You may feel like you didn't sign up for this part of your journey right now with what you've had to experience. But I want you to understand, this is why, circling back and around to what I just said, that the human connection is so important. And you know what? Maybe you're not as physically present with people as we probably really need to be to have healthy social and emotional health. But what's amazing about technology today is that we do have Zoom. We do have FaceTime. We do have the ability that even though we're not physically in the same room, that we can still have this connection. But you've got to be intentional. You see, connection doesn't just happen by accident. And that's really what I want you guys to know tonight. There is a deep desire in all of us to have connection. And for some of us, what's happened, man, we've went through some storms. We've had some things happen to us from our past. Maybe, and I'm not talking just about now with COVID. I'm talking about the last 5, 6, 7, 8 years in your life that you've had to navigate broken families. You've had to navigate people being hurtful, verbal, maybe physical abuse. You've had to navigate just something that's deeply impacted you, that, man, it's wounded you. And what's happened for some of us is that we long to be connected, but we go through something, and then what happens is we begin to develop this attitude of protection. And we begin to slowly push people away. We begin to slowly build up these walls, put on this social and emotional mask. And even though when we were born growing up, we longed to play, we longed to have friends, we longed for conversation, truthfully, we deep inside of us long to have connection. But sometimes through traumas and struggles and storms, our fear raises up this attitude where we don't mean to, but we begin to go to this place of protection because our trust has been broken. This was a part of my journey. Guys, when I was going through middle school and high school, I longed to feel human connection. I wanted to stay connected with people, but I allowed a lot of my past to begin to build up these walls where I began to isolate. I began to care so much what people thought about me. See, I come from a broken family. My mom and my dad got divorced when I was a young kid. And truthfully, my parents, they never fought. They never argued in front of me. I was naive enough to think that I had a picture perfect family. And when my parents got divorced, it rocked me, guys. You see, I didn't realize that my parents had challenges and issues of their own. And so when my parents got divorced, because they never fought, they never argued, they never did anything in front of me, and I understand their why. But man, it created almost this false sense of reality to me. And so when I was faced with that, and it went to this extreme explosion where my dad and my mom got divorced and my dad was removed from my life, I just did what they did. I put on my mask. I put on my fake face. I put on my fake smiles. I mean, I watched them for many years growing up. I was about 12 or 13 when my parents got divorced. I watched them for all those years. On the surface, seemed like everything was picture perfect. And so I began to copy that pattern. Listen to me, guys. One of my biggest mistakes was I began to put on my own mask too. And what I always tell parents, what I always tell friends and family is this. I get that there is a time when certain friends and certain family and our children, and there are certain conversations and certain things that others don't need to hear about. But listen to me. Don't be afraid to take off your own mask and really open up about some of the challenges that you're facing. See, we as people, especially as younger people, we're not as naive as what you think. We can handle probably a lot more than what you think. And truthfully, at a young age, us learning to see life and to navigate through life with not the picture perfect perspective, but for us to see that, man, there are good days and bad days, but no matter what kind of day it is, we keep putting one foot forward. See, I've learned with my children, my own kiddos, man, I'm not creating and I'm not making the same mistake that I kind of experienced with my parents. Their intentions were phenomenal, but with me and my son and with me and my daughter, when me and my wife have some disagreements, when me and my wife, we maybe are navigating through a challenging situation, or when life happens, there's a healthy place of protection, but there's also a really important place of allowing them to have a little bit of that exposure so they can also see how we as mom and dad, how we are also navigating through this. And I hope you hear me on that there needs to be a healthy place for us to expose our loved ones, our children, to life in a safe environment. Because I was blindsided and I thought this is what people do. We project and we portray a picture perfect life. And I just got to be honest with you guys, it didn't do me any good. I created some really unhealthy habits because, again, I put on my mask too. And so when I was going through school, in middle school, I had some really good friends at that time when the divorce happened. But truthfully, what happened is not only was I wearing my mask because I had learned some unhealthy habits from my parents, I also, as I grew up, I had all this pressure of what the culture and wanting to fit in and that thing called peer pressure. Listen to all my students. Listen to me, guys. Peer pressure, it's a real thing. I get it. There's a pressure to look a certain type of way, to fit in with certain groups and crowds and cliques of people. And unfortunately for me, man, I gave in to that pressure, and it only caused me so many hiccups and problems. And so already I'm talking to the parents and I'm talking to you students. Listen, parents, don't be afraid to be real. Don't be afraid to take off the mask and to be open and to be honest about some of your struggles. Don't feel that you've got to isolate some of your challenges. Now, I can't tell you the level and the depths of that. That's a you with your family kind of issue that you need to kind of settle in your heart and be comfortable with. But I always would say this, take it one step farther, because the number one question I get asked a lot of times is, Nathan, how much do I share? How much should I talk to with my children about life? And I say, listen, your kids, your siblings, those people around you right now, that family unit that's in the room watching this, man, they are probably a whole lot more hip and a whole lot more in the know than what you think. They have social media for the most of them. And what I would say to parents right now watching this, or to any family member that has a younger sibling or a younger child in their care, is when you get to a place where you're like, how much should I share? I would say take one more step, because I want your loved ones to know that life's real. But again, I'm not here to parent for you, but I just want you to know this. I always get asked, how do you get friends and family and students and strangers to take off their mask and to open up about their struggles with mental health, maybe about suicide or anxiety or eating disorders or their anger or any of this? Nathan, we've seen it. We've watched it. You get people that don't know you to just open up and to begin to talk and to really to begin to express and get those hurts and those pains out of them, so we can begin to flush that out and create healthy habits. How do you do that, Nathan? How do you build those bridges? You know how? Because I'm always willing to take off my mask first. I'm always willing to not care what others think, even my family. And I find the courage to not care what others think about me and talk about my struggles and talk about my pain and talk about my mistakes. See, my son and my daughter, my son's 8, my daughter's 4, my 8-year-old son right now, he knows about all of his father's mistakes. I'll talk to you guys a little bit more about them, but he knows about my battles with the addictions of drugs and alcohol. He knows about some of my battles when I bottled everything inside and how that began to get me into a space of hopelessness and loneliness where I was thinking about making some really bad decisions. I've realized that the best tools that I can give my kids is vulnerability and transparency. And so for all of you watching this right now, if I want to give you the biggest piece of advice, how to build bridges with your friends and your family, that's to take off your mask first. Be vulnerable, be transparent. And the second thing that I've already talked to you about, talking to the students, talking to the youth, is this. You have got to, as you navigate this thing called life, you've got to stop caring about the opinions of the people around you. Peer pressure, it's real. It's always going to be there. And one of the biggest mistakes that I made is I cared so much about wanting to fit in with those groups and those crowds, and I allowed myself to compromise. I allowed myself to make unhealthy choices and decisions, because the choices we make matter. And I'm talking about, as you grow up, the peer pressure of fitting in with those groups that maybe are out there doing things that you know they shouldn't be doing. I'm talking about the pressure as you grow up, having to navigate the pressure of the party atmosphere, or maybe not making the wisest decisions when it comes to choices that we have. You know what I'm talking about. What I've really learned is this: make good choices, great things happen. Make good choices, amazing things happen. But those choices don't have to be made alone. We need community. See, another thing, guys, is this. As you're a young person growing up, take off the mask. Realize that the habits that I learned of being afraid of letting anybody in, it didn't do any good for me. it only caused me more pain, more suffering, more struggles. Again, every one of you watching this, we need connection. We want it. But we've got to find the courage to allow those around us to continue to pour into us. And I'm talking about the ones who you're surrounding yourself with need to be the ones that are positive, that are speaking into your life, that are encouraging you, that aren't tearing each other down. Because who you surround yourself with matters. I always tell people when I meet them is this: I don't need you to tell me who you are. I just need you to let me see who your friends are. Because if I see who your friends are, I can tell you the kind of person that you are. And so far, guys, listen, as we are navigating this thing called life, and I really, really believe the fact that we can build bridges and that we can inspire each other to take off our masks, and not our physical masks, let me clarify, but that social and emotional mask. But it takes us as a family being vulnerable, being transparent. It takes us as a family, and I'm talking to us parents watching this right now. Listen to me. You've got to make your children priority. You're like, Nathan, I do make my kids priority. I'm not talking about autopilot. I'm not talking about you just being in the room. I'm talking about you giving them an undivided, intentional attention. That's a tongue twister, right? Attentional attention. See, parents, listen to me. Even sometimes if your children, your loved ones, your kiddos, they are like, man, I don't really want to open up. I don't want to spend time with you. I really get away from me. You're not cool. You're like, you're hurting kind of my reputation. You know, that stuff that they don't want us kids don't want the parents around. Even though they may not acknowledge it, man, I'm telling you what, it's such a place of safety when they and I and we know that you're there. See, the truth of the matter is, when I'm talking about a night of hope and building bridges, nobody can make anybody walk across a bridge. And for many of us, maybe we're battling anxiety, we're battling depression, maybe we're battling thoughts of wanting to end our life, we're going through the self-harming habits that we've created. We've developed eating disorders, we've developed addictions. Whatever your thing is, maybe you watching this that you have, or maybe one of your children, your friends, your family has, this is what I want you to understand. See, you can't make anybody open up to you. You can't make them begin to get real and to be vulnerable and transparent back. But this is what you can do. You can continue every single day to continue to build bridges by you being transparent, by you being intentional of giving those around you your attention. Because even if people don't acknowledge it, all of us want connection. The truth is, I always say it this way. If there was somebody on an island, and on this island, they were out there and they were isolated. And as long as I took the time to continue to build a bridge out to that island, and even though that person on the island was like, nope, I'm on the island, I don't need you, I'm out here, I'm hurt, I don't like it, I've been through too much pain, or you know what, I'm cool, I'm on my own. This is what I can guarantee for most of us. If a very dangerous time began to arise on that island, you know what I would say 9% of us would do? If a storm or something was happening and I knew that a bridge had been built to get me off of the island, even though when I didn't think that I needed it, and even though through my hurt, my pain, maybe my pride, my attitude, I wouldn't open up to you, my fear, when that storm, when that struggle, when that pain comes, most of us aren't going just to choose to go down and drown on the island or to be destroyed on the island. We're going to walk across the bridge and escape to safety. And that may sound like an unusual concept, but that's honestly how I've learned to be the greatest inspiration and impact and influence of those around me, I can't make people open up. I can't make you take off your social, your emotional mask and to get real. But what I can do as a friend and as a family member is to continue to be intentional with my attention to those people around me and keep building bridges. Even if you don't think they're responding, even if you think that they keep destroying your bridge, I promise you, subconsciously or quietly or privately, they know that bridge is being built. And so for me, my whole life now, it's about building bridges. And just that's called being real and being honest and being intentional with my attention and listening and really being somebody who gives people my attention. Guys, I know we are facing so much in this last many, many years. The world has gotten faster and faster and faster. Well, not so much this year. Things have kind of slowed down. But what I'm saying is life has gotten more complex with technology and social media and just the climate of where we are as humanity. But this is what I want you to know. You watching this, you've got to find the courage and you've got to realize that your ability just to punch fear in the face and to talk will be the most valuable tool you have. See, a little bit quickly about my story. Through middle school and high school, I went from being a straight A student to a straight F student. I went from being a person who it seemed on the surface had the world by the palm of his hands to being a young man who by the time I was a senior, man, drugs and alcohol had consumed me. I had battled with thoughts of wanting to end my life, self-image. I had an eating disorder of bulimia. I was dealing with self-harm. My life became this giant just mess, this chaotic storm. And as I look back now, the reality of it is because, man, I didn't trust people. I had been through things, and so I felt like I needed to protect myself, and I developed one of the worst habits, and that was that social and emotional mask. Ultimately, guys, how I am now 11 years sober. I'm 11 years free from suicidal thoughts. I'm 11 years free from any self-harming. I'm 11 years free from all of these destructive lifestyles that I had in the past, is because I developed these 5 deeply simple, but I had to be intentional habits to use daily. And it was, I learned to be transparent. I learned to be accountable. I learned that I needed to work hard. I learned that my choices mattered. And ultimately, the importance of valuing others. I call those the 5. And I talk about them a lot in that video series that you're going to get to have a chance to watch if you want to watch it as a resource. I'm going to break down a lot more of those. But there are 5 areas that's helped me absolutely change my life. And it's transparency, it's accountability, it's hard work, it's good choices, and it's valuing people. And really what I want to focus in and what we've been talking about are those first 2 and the 5th one, transparency and accountability and valuing people. Because guys, this is where really so much healthy mental health comes from. Because transparency, accountability, and valuing people, it specifically involves community. It involves connection. It involves us allowing others to help us kind of navigate this thing called life. See, for me, transparency was me taking off the social and the emotional mask and getting real with a counselor or a parent or a friend about my stuff. I ran for so many years, guys. We're talking from 13, 14 years old all the way up to I was 23. Almost 10 years did I navigate some of the most darkest, challenging times of my life, and I isolated. And the reason of it is because I didn't trust people. And truthfully, I realized that if I would just bury that stuff farther and farther and farther below, that the truth of the matter is that I wouldn't have to deal with it, and I just thought it would go away. And so I was always busy. And even though on the surface, for the beginning of my journey, the grades looked great and I was in sports, eventually the unhealthy social and emotional habits that I created began to surface and my grades began to stumble and I started making worse decisions. But through all of that, I just thought if I would stay busy and not face my challenges and my fears, that it would go away. But I realized something, it won't go away, guys. It wasn't until I found the courage to begin to become transparent. And what I mean by that is this. I literally took off that social and emotional mask and I started talking to people. I started talking to them and being real. And it was scary at first, but I had to punch that fear in the face. I had to do it afraid. I'm not here to tell you that it's going to be simple, it's going to be easy. But man, once I began to open up to those people in my inner circle, and I'm not telling you go run out there necessarily and just tell every single person in the world about every single one of your mistakes, your flaws, your struggles. But I am saying finding some people, finding a couple that you can begin to be transparent and taking off that social and emotional mask and begin talking about those things. Man, what happened is as I began to talk to those ones close to me about my stuff, you know what happened? There was this place of release. And ultimately, I began to realize something. I didn't need necessarily some amazing, profound answer back. But as I was talking to them, it was almost like I was also talking to myself. I was just beginning to recognize and acknowledge some of the challenges that I had. And every math teacher would tell you this. How do you solve a math problem? Step one is you have to identify what the problem is. And when I began to find the courage to talk about my suicidal thoughts or my self-harming or my eating disorder or acknowledging my addictions or all these areas that I was really struggling with that were just this outward surfacing of this inward hurt and pain. You know what happened? Man, I began to find this sense of peace because I have confidence in humanity. You watching this, you're a problem solver. But the one way that you've got to start solving the problem is you got to begin to be honest and acknowledging the problem. And so as I was being vulnerable and transparent with the people around me, man, I was also beginning to acknowledge the problem to myself. Not just that I knew that I had it, because I knew that I had it, but really beginning to have a heart that I want to have better. I want to be better. I want to experience better. But to do that, I've got to change my habits because what I was doing in the past of how I was trying to navigate that wasn't working. Insanity is continuing to do the same thing over and over again and expecting a different response. Guys, transparency, it's such a key to having a healthy life full of hope. It's such a key of building bridges because transparency and opening up, you know what it did also? The people that I was sharing with, they found courage and they started opening up too. And I realized as they started opening up and as I started opening up, one of the biggest shifts in my life began to happen. I learned that all people, you, me, your parents, your friends, your children, everybody breathing, all of us are beautifully broken some way, somehow. We've all got stuff. We've all got issues in life. And as I began to share and I began to realize that I wasn't the only one who felt this way. Transparency is the number one tool, I believe, to having healthy mental health. And that is taking off the social and the emotional mask and talking about our stuff because we are better together. We are all beautifully broken. We've all got stuff somehow, some way. And when I started getting that deep down in my soul and in my heart, it gave me this sense of courage because also I realized that as I was sharing, man, I was also inspiring others to share too. You see, that fifth part of my 5 which is valuing others, really what I mean is this: what you give away, you get to keep. A lot of people told me for a long time, Nathan, don't give up. You're not alone. You're loved. You're important. I'm here for you. When I was growing up, I had people always encouraging me. But let's be real. When I would go back and I would go home to my bedroom and I would look in the mirror, I didn't feel that way. And so even though people were trying to open up and encourage me, I didn't feel that way. But what I've learned about really having good self-esteem, having good self-worth, having a great self-value about who you are, and recognizing that literally your life is meant to leave the fingerprints on history, that your life is meant to speak, to scream, and to shout. It's this: what you give away, you get to keep. And here's what I mean by that. When I began being vulnerable and transparent and opening up, and it inspired others to open up, I began to realize when I would try to love people and help people and be real with people and talk to people, when I would walk away from those conversations, I knew my vulnerability, my intentional intention to listen and just to be present in the conversation and to let them know that they matter too. Even though I was struggling, I saw how it shifted their perspective. They begin to smile. They begin to get encouraged. They begin to find some inspiration. And so what I'm saying is this: what you give away, you get to keep. And here's what I mean. What I couldn't get by others telling me how loved and important and special I was, when I started, even with my struggles, even with my challenges, being intentional to stay connected, being intentional of being kind, being intentional of serving, of helping people, it subconsciously, when I walked away from those experiences, it began to raise my self-worth. It began to raise my self-esteem, because what you give away, you get to keep. It's just the facts of the matter, guys. It's just the reality of the situation. It's like this super backwards thought process, but I'm telling you, it's not backwards. It's the source. When you find the courage to open up and to take off the mask and to be real and to build bridges and to be honest and to open up, you're inspiring people. And as they begin to find courage to open up and to share, and we build deep connections and deep communities, it will naturally, by that experience, by that interaction, it begins to give you a sense of real self-worth, of real self-value. See, guys, one of the biggest keys for my hope, how I've navigated, how I will face storms and challenges, because I've realized vulnerability and transparency is everything. And when I'm intentional of opening up and helping people and loving people and being present in conversations with people, that's what gives me a sense of real self-worth. That experience I can't deny. See, I could go back to my room. If you just told me how important and loved I was, I could go back to my room and say, yeah, those words were cool, but I didn't feel it. But when I help people and there's an interaction and an experience where I knew my life just added value to somebody else, I couldn't deny that experience. See, what you give away is what you get to keep. Transparency and valuing others, and what I mean by that is making others, people around you, important, if it's physical, or, and I mean by like actually in face-to-face contact with them, or even, guys, don't minimize the fact of what it is to be intentional of a FaceTime or a phone call or positive text, letting you know that you're there, you support them, you love them. Remember, we're just building bridges, guys. We can't make anybody walk across the bridge, but we can so build the bridge. And 99.9% of what I've experienced, if people know there's a bridge there and the island begins to go under, or there's a danger for their life, they will walk across that bridge. The other part of this, of those five, transparency, valuing others, but it's the second one that I always talk about. It's the word accountability. Now, for some of you, that word accountability, you may not like that, especially if you're a student watching this right now, or maybe even if you're a worker and you have bosses and those around you. The word accountability, it's not the most comfortable word. And the reason is because for me growing up, the word accountability always meant like someone's watching over me, someone's going to tell on me, someone's waiting to get me in trouble. Accountability was never really an exciting word. But here's the thing, guys, about accountability. See, it goes hand in hand with that number one of my five: transparency, accountability, hard work, good choices, and valuing people. The first two, transparency and accountability, they go hand in hand, because here's what happens. Maybe you're watching this, and I guarantee you, every single one of you, I don't care who you are, you watching this, don't think about your kids don't think about your parents, you think about you. Every one of you, there are areas in your life that you want to change, you probably should change, you know you need to change, but for so long, and most times, nothing really ever changes there. You want to know why? Because change is extremely uncomfortable. And so a lot of us, even though maybe there's destructive behaviors or attitudes, or maybe there's procrastination or whatever that thing is that you know right now that you want to change, nothing changes because you are comfortable where you've been. And change, it's like a fish out of water. It's like somebody that's out of place. You feel vulnerable. You feel like you're incapable. And so lots of times when we have these unhealthy habits and these destructive behaviors, when we want to change, too often we run back to what we've always been. Why? Because change is uncomfortable. So we go back to what we've always been. But this is where, when I began to experience transparency and opening up to the people around me, that created these connections with people that they could hold me accountable. And accountability isn't somebody watching over you, wanting to tell on you, wanting to report you, wanting to write you up, wanting to fire you, wanting to discipline you. Accountability is this: they become an anchor. Because people can't change you. No matter what's happening in life, you can't change people. And so even though those people around you, the person that I opened up to in my journey, he couldn't change me. He couldn't make me change. He couldn't force me back. But what he could become is become this accountability, this person that was an anchor. And because when my fight or flight attitude rose, change is uncomfortable. A lot of times when this fear begins to rise up, we get unsure about what we're doing. Maybe we made a mistake. So what do? We run back to being what we've always been. But when I had this person and this community and these people around me that were surrounding me and that I was willing to take off my mask and I was building some great connection with, they became these anchors. They couldn't push me forward and they couldn't make me run back. But what they could do is support me as that emotion, that fight or flight. But as that cloud would come, or as that wave would crash and then recede, or as that mountain and valley, that's what our emotions were like. And if that person could be accountable and hold me like an anchor, eventually, that feeling would pass. And I'd have a moment of clarity. And he or she didn't let me run back to being what I used to always be. And they allowed me to take another step forward on my own. See, transparency and accountability is so important, guys, but also is valuing others. Tonight, guys, this is what I want you to understand. The also importance of valuing others, treating people with equality, recognizing other people around you may not feel like you see them as an equal, recognizing the importance of really understanding and being willing and being self-aware to know that we can't take for granted how people, no matter their race, no matter their gender, no matter their age, no matter who they are, it's our job. It's your job to be self-aware enough to value others, because again, What you give away, you get to keep. And we're in a place right now with so many challenges and so many issues and so many areas. It was with our virus that we're very presently dealing with right now, or the tensions when it comes to the culture and to some of the racial situations that are brought into the forefront. It's this. We are in a time as humanity, young and old, no matter where we are, race, color, creed, for us to be intentional of realizing that the connection piece can also heal and mend more things that are broken down. And I would say for some of us watching this, man, it's okay just to be quiet and to listen. Being intentionally present with your attention doesn't mean that you've always got to lead the conversation. It means that you're also very aware, very locked in, and very present when somebody else is sharing. Because every single person, their experience, their journey, their struggle, their reality, it's just that. It's theirs. And we don't know what it's like to live in each other's shoes. You know, for me, what I've recognized in this time of honestly so many what it seems like tension points with everything. You think about it right now in 2020, that's a tension point, that challenge. But the crazy and amazing thing about pressure is this, those tensions. It can do one of two things. I always say pressure can bust pipes, but pressure also can create diamonds. And so from my mouth to your ears, when we're willing to be self-aware, when we're willing to have an open heart and an open mind and begin to be intentional of listening, intentional of being present in conversations, and being really intentional of letting no matter who people are, no matter what the struggle is, if it's mental health, if it's or us really coming to terms with the equality and the importance of this equity of recognizing that we as humanity are better together. It's us realizing that we need to be present in the conversations, and it's uncomfortable for all of us. But again, that's the growth zone. That's where you grow in life. Pressure is what refines diamonds. That pressure isn't meant to be internalized and eternalized and eternalized where explosions happen. That pressure is to refine us as people. And so for me, guys, this journey of what 2020 can be, it's not how terrible it is or how many challenges and oh my, it's so bad. No, I know that when it comes to the virus, that life has changed, that we're having to navigate anxiety, depression, suicide, a whole plethora of mental health and emotions that, man, we are navigating. And I know that 2020 has been a time of uncomfortability, maybe when it comes to some of the racial tension or us really beginning to turn and look at this thing called equality and really this time of social justice, like this time for life. What I see in this, it's a time for humanity to grow. It's a time for us to say, you know what, we're better together. It's a time for all of us in Pembroke Pines to say, you know what, I have hope because I'm breathing. It's a time for me to say, I can't just stay on the sidelines though, but I've got to begin to take off my emotional mask, and I've got to begin to talk about my hurts and my pains, and I've got to be willing to put my scars out to the public, to my friends. I've got to be willing to be intentional of listening to my friends, to my community, because man, when I just get into an atmosphere and begin to listen and be intentional with my intention and be present, tongue twister, man, life just gets better. Tonight, guys, listen, we're in this together. We've got so many resources. You have so many resources. We have each other. We have friends. We have family. We have humanity. I've got confidence in us. Is it easy? No. Is it comfortable? No. Is it challenging? Yes. Are there bad days? Yes. Are there painful moments? Yes. Are there uncomfortable moments? Yes. But you know what? Man, what a time for us to rally around each other. One of the questions, and I've said it over and over throughout this, Nathan, how do I inspire my friends, my family, my community to be transparent and take off their mask? I always encourage you just to take off your mask first. Social and emotional mask. I encourage you to open up and to be real. Listen, tonight I hope that you just take a deep breath. You embrace the people around you. If you're alone, realize you're not alone. You may not have the community or the people around you ultimately that you want, but I promise you, you're not alone. There's tons of resources for you, but you got to take off that first step and take off the social and the emotional mask. You got to take the first step and become really aware to your surroundings and to acknowledging the fact and the issue that, man, there's no going back. We're only going forward. We're better together. No one's an island. We need each other. You know, connection's everything. I've navigated so many challenges in my journey. Substance abuse was a huge one. Man, drugs and alcohol I thought were the answer. It wasn't. It's the counterfeit connection. It gave me a sense of friends and family and community, but I would wake up every day feeling just as empty. It was a social and atmosphere, but it never gave me depth to my soul. Because every day I would wake up and I would still be hurting. And it would give me this kind of surface area of community because I could share a habit of drugs and alcohol with them. And so I got a little taste of community, but I never had to trust and open up about the real hurts and the real pain. See, drugs and alcohol, it's a counterfeit connection. I have a whole video on that. Guys, tonight, use your resources. Tonight, guys, take a deep breath. Breathe. It's going to be great. Challenging, yes. Adversity, yes. But together, there's hope. You're breathing. Guys, my story, drugs, alcohol riddled my life. Battles of thoughts of giving up. Eating disorders, the whole gamut, you name it. Broken families, abuses. But here's what I've learned. The last 10 years of my life, I've embraced it. I was willing to take off the bandage off my wound and let the air and the light and the atmosphere heal it. You got to be willing to open up. That wound, my sister's a nurse. Wounds need to have times of exposure so the natural elements can help heal it with the light and the air. We as people are the same way. Build the bridge, guys. You can't make anyone walk across it. Open up. Be vulnerable first. That's the number one question I get asked. How much should I share, Nathan? Go to where you feel comfortable. Then I would always encourage you to take one more step. Because the people listening to you, they're not naive. They're so much more aware of the environment than what you think. Guys, healthy habits of the heart and of the mind are so important. But what I can promise you all is this, is there is hope. And that we're going to be better together. If you're struggling tonight, I would encourage you to reach out, maybe to the person right next to you. Be open, be honest. Guys, you have nothing to fear except fear itself. There's nothing to be afraid of because the people around you, they have issues too. You're not in trouble for your battle. You're not in trouble for your struggle. What you are is your struggle lets you just know how much of a part of humanity you are. You belong here. You're one of us. We're family. Guys, I hope you have a great night tonight. Listen, use your resources. If you're struggling, reach out, speak up, speak out. If you're a friend or a parent or a teacher, don't be afraid to be intentional and just talk to that person about their stuff. Keep building the bridge. You can't make them walk across, but they can, I promise you, when they know you're there, they'll walk across it at 99.9% of the time. This is a night of hope. Pembroke Pines, surrounding areas. I love you guys. I so hope to get there in person with you guys sometime soon and give you a totally in-person experience. But until then, this right here, I know we're physically distant, which is needed, but we can stay socially connected. I would encourage you, find also our social medias. Your Life Speaks, it's my organization. I have an Instagram, Facebook. Nathan Harmon 1 is a lot of my medias. We put out powerful content. It's just another resource. We inspire daily there. I know social media is not going anywhere. It's here to stay. And so I'm going to use it as a tool for me, not against me. Guys, I love you. I mean that. You are not alone. Hug your family. Take a deep breath. Use the resources. If I'm not above using resources and it's helped me get to where I am, use yours. I'm serious. I love you guys. This tonight, I hope tonight of hope for you. Hope a night that you know you're not alone. A night to know that people are building bridges to you and that you're building bridges to others. And we're going to keep working on connection and community. I know you guys in the community there, when it comes to the traumatic experience, even with the Parkland, listen, keep talking, keep sharing, keep being real, keep being vulnerable. There will always be those hurts and those pains. But again, the more air and light we put on them, the more real and raw we are. Real knows real. The more we put light and air on the wounds, that's when there's healing. There'll always be a scar. I won't lie to you. But scars, to me, scars now are where life tried to take us out. But we were resilient enough to persevere. And now that scar is just a part of my story and how I'm not slowing down and I'm going to keep moving forward. I'm Nathan Harmon, guys. I love you all and I hope you have a phenomenal night of peace. Have some questions. Spend this evening, lay your head down as you go to sleep, but know we're in this together. And as humanity, we're going to get through this together.
So, what did you all think about that presentation? Another great forum presented to our families. I want to thank you for being a part of this virtual Raising Positive Children, a Night of Hope. Again, it certainly is a night of hope and a future of hope for all of us. We hope you learned, enjoyed, and can take what was presented today with you. This video will remain on the city's YouTube channel. Please feel free to share it with anyone you think will be open to watching it and using the resources that are provided there. We look forward to presenting our 7th in the series of Raising Positive Children forums in the spring, and we hope that you will once again join us. On behalf of Principal Castellano, the City of Pembroke Pines, thank you so much, and as always, be safe. Thank you.